Writing melodies can be difficult. In fact, if you don't find the right notes or the right rhythm, you might feel stuck at some point and stop working on your project. But did you know? You don't have to have all the musical background and theory. You only have to know how to use the technical aspects of Ableton or any other DAW in your favor to let the program write your melodies. So you're hearing this chord progression in the background. Today I want to show you how only with the MIDI tools of Ableton I'm gonna turn it into this. So this is our chord progression, and what we need first to turn this into a melody is the simple Arpeggiator. Many of you know how that works. Basically, if you have long notes, the Arpeggiator will split it into several notes depending on your settings. For example, if you set it to 16th notes, it will play 16th notes only and play note by note, for example, if you set it to one of those, while it will play every note together if you set it to chord trigger. So let's go to Con and Diverge and let's have a listen first. Now we can maybe add some steps here. So the distance here tells us where the steps go, right? Now we had it to +12, which means the steps are going one octave higher. We could also set it to +7, for example. And here you can already see how you can, just by turning some knobs, find some more nice melodies. So let's stay with the +12 and let's think about how we can make this even more alive. One of my favorite tools is Ableton's Random. What it does is it, by the chance you set here, randomly puts a note on a different value. So for example, if we choose scale 12, which is 1 octave, and take choice 1, it will, by the chance we set here, for example, let's say 55%, put the note on 12 semitones above or below the note that was actually played. We can decide on that by choosing Add, which is addition, subtract, which is subtraction, so we go the other way, or by, which means we go in both directions, right? So if we change addition, for example, and we play it now, you can hear now the steps of the Arpeggiator plus the random kind of already make this very, very unpredictable type of melody. And this is already pretty cool. So next up, what we want to change here is the velocity, because right now everything is playing on the same kind of velocity power, so all the notes are equal in loudness, but we don't want that. We want it to feel like a real piano player, right? So what we have to do is set different velocity values, and since we can't do this here because we only have the chords, right? We don't have the notes from the Arpeggiator. We do this with the velocity tool. So let's set it to random. You can see now this gray area pops up, which shows where the note randomly can be set. So obviously as higher as you set it, the area gets bigger, right? So if we compress this, for example, that means that there is no real mid area, right? We either are loud or not loud. And if we drive it, for example, you can see this nice curve. So depending on this, you can change your velocity settings, and you could even say we don't want the low velocities or we don't want the high velocities like this. And if we play it now, let me turn it on while it's playing. Right now what we have is a real piano player sitting there like going super crazy, and we can control that obviously. For example, we can automate this output high, and let's have a listen here. So you can play around with that and find your own melodies. So you can play around with all those knobs to find your perfect melody without even playing a single key, right? But now the question is, we're using a lot of randomized elements, right? So how do we capture something if it's nice, right? Because we don't want to, you know, it will do it randomly every time. But what if we heard this one phrase that was super nice? So what we do is we go to another MIDI track, and we choose the input from the track here, right? And we make it record ready. And now let's record this. So here we have a super crazy melody, and now we can go into the MIDIs and decide which ones we want, which ones we don't want. What's very helpful is the scale function here. So I think we're in C minor, right? So we can set it to C minor. And then we can say like, oh, maybe we want to go here instead. We want to go here. We can only loop one phrase like this, right? Everything's up to us. And then we can put it back into the channel and deactivate the plugins here. And that's the whole magic. So now let me tell you, you don't have to work this out yourself. There's a MIDI rack that I've created for you for this video, and you can download it for free in the description. And it looks like this. So here you have the effects that we just used, plus some scale effects, and I will talk about this in a moment, and all the important parameters here. So you can play around with that, and what we want to do now, we want to do this, but not with the piano, but rather we want to use a synthesizer sound. And if you need MIDI files, well, we have a big MIDI file collection on our shop. So for example, let's take some from the melodic pack. By the way, there's a link up here for you to check out the MIDI files. And now let's, for example, go to G sharp and take this one, for example. This is what it looks like. So pretty intense already. And yes, the whole rack is on, right? We play 16th notes. We have one step already. We can set the gate here. We can choose the style, right? You see this here. And the random is off, so we can set this to maybe like also only 20% or so. We can set it to addition only. And the velocity randomizing, we want it to be very strong, I think, and also a little compression. And I want to be in the minor scale, whatever happens. So I turn this on, right? You see this goes on whenever you leave the 0. And we are in G sharp, right? So let's set this to G sharp. And let's see what happens. Thanks again for watching. I hope this was helpful. Check out the rack. As I said, it's for free in the description, and have fun finding your perfect melody in the most simple way like this.